This is not how you celebrate a franchise, but this is. True to the nature of a company skilled enough to turn a set of B-list characters into the most popular movie franchise of all time, Marvel Studios seems to have gotten over their recent slump period in record time. If the House of Ideas had ever truly fallen off the top, they're certainly back up there now between the universal acclaim and near-perfect 99% Rotten Tomatoes score for X-Men 97, the earth-shattering announcements regarding Fantastic Four First Steps, and Avengers Doomsday that left Hall H Comic-Con crowds and the internet at large in a frenzy, and of course, the runaway success of Deadpool and Wolverine. This multiverse film, filled with cameos from old returning actors and a self-acceptance arc for our hero at its core, is breaking box office records left and right, while garnering a very positive response from both critics and audiences, with Daily Record's Ian Bunting praising, quote, "the unapologetically fun flick we all need in our lives right now." Sadly, this kind of positivity isn't really being felt at the distinguished competition right now. While DC Studios does look poised to win back fans with James Gunn's Superman, DC and Warner Brothers as a whole are currently still recovering from 3 of their 4 major superhero blockbusters in 2023 being massive box office bombs. The most high-profile of these bombs being The Flash, a multiverse film filled with cameos from old returning actors and a self-acceptance arc for our hero at its core? Now, hold on a second. If these 2 films are built on such similar foundations, why is one such a massive and enthusiastically embraced hit, and the other is, in the words of Memphis Flyers' Chris McCoy, easily the worst film of the decade so far? To understand that, we'll need to break down both Deadpool and Wolverine and The Flash's strengths and weaknesses into 3 distinct categories: box office and marketing, how each film pays homage to its predecessors, and the central arc of its title character. Now lace up your boots and sharpen your claws as we explore why Deadpool and Wolverine worked and The Flash didn't. Oh, and just so we're clear, massive spoilers for both films from here on out, though the warning is obviously more relevant to Deadpool and Wolverine. If there's one thing you can say about Ryan Reynolds, it's that the man is remarkably skilled at selling anyone just about anything, and Deadpool and Wolverine is no exception. Even before the start of filming, Reynolds was using his marketing savvy to get people excited for the next Deadpool movie, releasing a short teaser video on social media in September 2022 that revealed that Hugh Jackman would return as Wolverine for the film.
Hey Hugh, you want to play Wolverine one more time?
Yeah, sure, Ryan.
And with a soundtrack filled with beloved throwback hits like NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye, a cavalcade of interviews where Jackman and Reynolds' chemistry and charisma shines, and so many other clever marketing stunts, it's no wonder the film has had enough positive exposure to rocket itself into a billion-dollar box office return and a position as the second highest-grossing film of 2024, behind only the $1.5 billion of Inside Out 2. By contrast, the entirety of The Flash's press tour and overall marketing was overshadowed by the criminal case and concurrent mental health crisis of its lead actor, Ezra Miller. Given the controversy, very few companies wanted their brand to be associated with the film, leading to much of its pre-release exposure coming from the almost suspiciously positive endorsement of seemingly random celebrities like Tom Cruise and Stephen King, and with Miller staying out of the limelight due to various legal hearings and for the general safety of themselves and those around them. Interviews and press were handled almost entirely by Michael Keaton and Sasha Calle. Though the 2 performed admirably under these circumstances, especially Calle, given that The Flash was her first major blockbuster role, and thus this was her first blockbuster press tour, these interviews can't help but feel awkward thanks to the conspicuous absence of the film's star and the real-world reasons why they weren't there. Given all this, it's no wonder the film bombed at the box office, grossing only $271 million worldwide on a $200 million budget before marketing, becoming the biggest bomb in comic book movie history. But money isn't everything. Many great films have bombed at the box office, and many terrible films have been huge hits. So let's look at the more substantial elements. Both Deadpool and Wolverine and The Flash are meant to serve as swan songs to previous eras of Marvel and DC filmmaking, with the former being a last hurrah for the Fox X-Men films, and the latter being the final film in the DC Extended Universe. Except not really, because Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2 are still considered canon, but that's neither here nor there. Deadpool and Wolverine incorporates this swan song concept directly into the film's plot. The story's conflict is all about Deadpool trying to save the Fox X-Men universe after the death of its anchor being, Wolverine, which is itself a loving tribute to Logan and a subtle ribbing at the X-Men film's tendency to prioritize Wolverine over nearly every other character. The instantly iconic opening fight scene both confirms that the story respects what Logan did by having that version of the character stay dead, while also poking fun at many fans' treatment of the film as gospel, by having Deadpool brutally murder TVA agents with Logan's skeleton, and the survivors of said group being comically appalled by his actions. And that's before you get into the film's show-stopping roster of cameos that pay homage to nearly every facet of the pre-MCU Marvel movie era. Chris Evans subverts expectations by returning not as Captain America, but as his take on Johnny Storm from the 2000s Fantastic Four films. Several original X-Men characters appear as members of Cassandra's forces, with Aaron Stanford and Tyler Mane reprising their roles as Pyro and Sabretooth respectively. Channing Tatum finally gets to play Gambit after his solo film spent so long in development hell before being cancelled. Jennifer Garner returns as Elektra to represent Fox's Daredevil franchise, and Daphne Keane returns as Laura/X-23 as further tribute to the emotional core of Logan. But it's not just Fox Marvel getting the love here. Jon Favreau returns as Happy Hogan as a tribute to the early MCU. Wesley Snipes returns as Blade out of respect for that movie, and on top of his main role, Hugh Jackman also plays several Wolverine variants that pay homage to different iconic looks from the comics. The entire team behind Deadpool and Wolverine clearly made the film with love, passion, and respect for the material and its history. By contrast, The Flash feels bizarrely uninterested in the DCEU, or even the other DC media it's pulling from, despite leaning so heavily on it at the expense of the extensive comic book history of Flash himself. Apart from Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck in the opening action scene, and Jason Momoa in a post-credits gag, no other DCEU heroes appear. Michael Shannon's General Zod returns from Man of Steel as the main villain, but both the film and Shannon himself seem to treat the character's appearance as an obligation rather than anything special. Like with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, Michael Keaton appears to be playing a different version of Batman than the one he played in the Burton films. But unlike with Wolverine, that doesn't seem to mean anything in terms of story or character. He's mostly just here so they can say he's here and have him do the lines everyone remembers with very little in the way of substance. And the only other returning actors, Temuera Morrison and George Clooney, are only there for quick jokes. But what about the Speed Force cameos, you ask? Well, none of those characters were actually played by the actors. Instead, often depicted entirely by distractingly rubbery CGI. Not only does this miss much of the point of bringing these characters back, i.e. getting to see the old and new actors interact, it also comes off as scummy, given that many of the actors seen in the montage are deceased. George Reeves, who played Superman in the Adventures of Superman television series, has no living family members who could have given their consent to use his image. And though Christopher Reeve does, no one bothered asking them, with his 3 children confirming in an interview with Variety that none of them were contacted about the film and understandably hadn't seen it. Even Nicolas Cage, who did appear on set to play Superman after wanting to for years, had all of his scenes replaced with CGI without his knowledge, telling Yahoo Entertainment, "When I went to the picture, it was me fighting a giant spider. I did not do that. That was not what I did." Of course, cameos and references are meant to be the icing on the cake, a bonus treat that elevates the rest of the story. So what exactly are these stories about? Deadpool and Wolverine is about its title characters finding purpose. After failing an Avengers audition and breaking up with Vanessa, Wade resigns himself to civilian life. Mostly happy and surrounded by the people he loves, but ultimately unfulfilled. When he learns that the TVA plans to destroy his universe, he gains purpose through his quest to find a Wolverine. And the Wolverine he finds is a depressed alcoholic who spends every day wallowing in self-hatred because he let his teammates die and murdered innocent people in his rage. By teaming up with each other and the other characters in the Void, both Deadpool and Wolverine learn that they are not defined by their past mistakes, that doing bad things doesn't make them bad people, and that they are not only worthy of love, but are more than capable of being the heroes that the people they love always knew they could be. It's a story about making peace with your past and accepting yourself that's arguably a little conventional, but still very much works and allows its main characters to be active participants in the narrative and grow as people over the course of the story. So what is The Flash about then? After changing the timeline to prevent his mother's death, despite being warned by Batman not to, Barry Allen loses his powers and has to teach a younger version of himself how to use them in order to stop General Zod, because in this timeline there's no Superman. He eventually regains his powers and recruits Batman and Supergirl, but those two keep dying in the battle no matter how many times the two Barrys redo it with time travel. Younger Barry is consumed by his obsession to fix things and turns evil, while older Barry realizes the only way for the world to survive is for his mother to die, so he resets the timeline back to normal. When you boil all that down, it's essentially about a young person wanting to make a sweeping change for the better, being told that will only make things worse by an older authority figure, and then said older authority figure being proven right. Barry's character development is the result of him literally killing the embodiment of his own idealism. The moral of the story is don't try to change things, don't be proactive, don't be your own person. Just let the old billionaires handle everything for you, or else you'll doom the world. That is a deeply cynical and frankly disturbing moral for a film at least partially aimed at kids, and one that feels very much against the optimistic and forward-thinking roots of Barry's character in the comics, and even most of his previous DCEU appearances. Deadpool and Wolverine is a film that pays loving homage to its source material, while creating something new and sending its main characters on an emotionally powerful journey of self-actualization that has quickly become one of the biggest box office hits of 2024. While The Flash is a film that uses pre-existing material as a crutch with very little consideration to the people who made said work, in an overly pessimistic narrative that claims any attempt to be better will just make things worse, that quickly became one of the biggest box office bombs of 2023. While there are flaws with Deadpool and Wolverine, and good moments in The Flash for the most part, the two films couldn't be more opposite. And given all that, it's abundantly clear why Deadpool and Wolverine worked and The Flash didn't. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you agree that Deadpool and Wolverine works better than The Flash? And what other superhero team-ups, multiversal or otherwise, would you like to see in live action? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you can see great videos like this as soon as they go up. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Hey.